Hey everybody, this is the update to my Nightblade Tank build. Nightblade Tank is my main tank, so that's what I usually tank on, and I've done a bunch of hard stuff on it. All of the veteran dungeons I've done on it, and I've done veteran trials on it as well, even veteran DLC trials. So this is a build that works great for me. I hope it works for you as well. Let's get right into it then. Remember though, before we start, that tanking is very situational. So the skills and the sets that I'm using here are the ones that work for me in, say, 80% of all cases. But obviously for certain situations you want to equip different sets and skills, which is why I'm going to go into optional skills as well and show you which slot I would put them into. So just bear with me, and I hope you have the time to watch this because it's worth it. Alright, let's get right into it. Character. We are a Nord on this build. Let's quickly show you what the Nords do. The duration of any consumed drink is increased by 15 minutes, which can be quite nice. Also, you get an extra 1k health. You've got cold resistance, and you gain immunity to the chilled status effect. So mostly for the 1k health, but also the cold resistance and immunity to chilled is pretty nice in some dungeons. And then we got Stalwart. This is very important for us. This increases our max stamina for 1500, plus when we take damage we gain 5 ultimate. So since we're the tank and we're taunting things, we will take damage a lot of the time, and our ultimate regeneration with this passive is really good. And then also we've got Rugged, which is perfect for a tank. Our physical and spell resistances are increased by almost 4k. So all of these passives are really good. You can try this on other builds. I've been a Dark Elf for quite a while, and it worked alright, but changing the race to a Nord really made the build quite a bit better. If you don't want to be a Nord, the second thing I'd probably go for is an Imperial, because they've got quite nice passives as well for tanking. And well, some people like Argonian tanking, but I think the only thing it really does is the potion passive, so you'd have to really build around potions. So it's probably not the greatest race for this build, but you can pretty much tank on any race if you adjust your character and food and everything a little bit. But Nord is definitely the best one for this build, and second best will be Imperial. Okay, let's get into the character sheet. So, unbuffed right now. Well, we do have food on. We're at 16k, almost 17k max magicka, 47k max health, which is huge, and then almost 20k max stamina, which we need for blocking and our skills. We've got 1700 magicka recovery, which is very nice as well, and our spell resistance and physical resistance are at 27k at the moment. However, once we get some of these skills going here, you'll see that our resistances go right up to 33k, which is the cap anyway. And yeah, so that's perfect. And we don't even do much for it, like we're not wearing any sets that boost our resistances quite a lot. It's just the Nord passives and the skills that we're using. So we've got a huge health pool, we're very tanky, we've got great magicka recovery, we've got 20k stamina, plus maxed out, capped out resistances. It's really great. So 64 points into health here. And we're using the Atronach as a Mundus Stone, increasing our magicka recovery, because most of our skills do cost magicka. I'm using the Bewitched Sugar Skulls, the new food, the gold one, which gives you max health, max stamina, and max magicka, and increases your health recovery a little bit. If you don't want to use that because it's too expensive, you can just use the normal Tri-Stat food. Also, we are a stage 4 vampire at all times, except for when you're trying to do Veteran Sunspire. I would probably drop that down to stage 1 or 2, or lose it completely, depending on how experienced you are with trials and all. Okay, so as I said, food is the Bewitched Sugar Skulls, but if that's too expensive for you, you can also just use the normal Tri-Stat food that also gives you health, magicka, and stamina. It'll work just as fine. And for potions, we're using the Essence of Health. Make sure though that you're getting the ones that give you all three, health, magicka, and stamina, and health recovery, magicka recovery, and stamina recovery, because this is important in case you're running low on magicka or low on stamina and you can't really heavy attack at the moment. Pop a potion that gives you all three of them back. There are different essences of health. Some give you only health, so you want to make sure you get the crafted ones that give you all three. Alright, so much for the stats and everything. Let's get into the skills. On the front bar, the first thing we've got is our shield, Bone Surge. This comes from the Undaunted skill line. It starts out as Bone Shield. You can morph it to Bone Surge. And then what this does is you surround yourself with a whirlwind of bones and you gain a damage shield that absorbs 15k damage over 6 seconds. And allies next to you can activate a synergy. And as we all know, synergies are great because of the Undaunted passives, because of certain sets in the game, like most of the ones from Maw of Locage, the Trial, or even the new Locastes. So giving synergies is always nice. This is the main shield. The other shield you can use in certain situations, very nice, would be Absorb Missile from the one-handed shield. This gains you gives you a 14k damage shield for 6 seconds, and while the shield persists, you get healed. Plus, if you get hit with a direct damage projectile, yeah, right, you get healed when you're getting hit with a direct damage projectile. So this is nice in situations where there's a lot of damage incoming, because it has a bit of a self-heal on it as well. Okay. The next thing we've got is Dark Cloak. This is our heal over time. It's from the Shadow skill line. Shroud yourself in a protective shadow to heal yourself for 3k every 1 second over 8 seconds. And this scales off our max health as well, so did the Absorb Missile shield. Plus you gain minor protection when you're shrouded, reducing your damage taken by 8%. So really great skill for a tank. Always keep this up. It looks like this. And while it's running, you heal every second, plus you get minor protection, reducing all your incoming damage. Nightblade tanking is a lot about damage mitigation, and this is one great skill for it, so always keep this up. Always keep this on your front bar, your main tanking bar, to reduce the damage that's incoming. Very good. Okay, the next skill we've got is Mirage. This comes from the Assassination skill line, and this is also a fantastic skill. This grants you major evasion and minor resolve, reducing the damage from area attacks by 25% and increasing your physical and spell resistance by 1300 for 26 seconds. So it's pretty much also another mitigation skill. Your physical and spell resistance goes up and the damage taken gets reduced. So you'll notice this is Mirage, this is Dark Cloak, and once we got both of these on, that's how we go up to the 33k spell and physical resistance from the 27k. So you want to have these on your front bar and your main tanking bar, and always keep both of them up. Mirage lasts a lot longer, obviously, so just time it right. And then if there's a big thing coming in, like the Dragon Breath in Sunspire, use your Bone Surge or Absorb Missile shield as well. Next up, the two skills from the One Hand and Shield skill line, Heroic Slash. This is very important because this is afflicting the enemy with minor maim, reducing their damage done by 15% for 12 seconds. You also gain minor heroism, granting you 1 ultimate every 1.5 seconds. So adding to our racial skills from the Nord, which also gives us a lot of ultimate back when we take damage, we always want to keep this up. It lasts for 12 seconds, so reapply it every 12 seconds, because it also gives us ultimate back, and very importantly, people underestimate this minor maim, reducing the damage done by the boss by 15%. 15% is a whole lot, so you always want to keep this up and be sure to reduce the whatever you're tanking, the damage that it does to you. And then obviously our taunt, Pierce Armor. This is also from the One Hand and Shield skill line. It's actually the first two skills you unlock, Pierce Armor and Heroic Slash. And this is pretty much your taunt. This is how you taunt enemies. 15 seconds it lasts now, and also afflicts the enemy with major fracture and major breach, reducing their physical and spell resistance by 5k for 15 seconds. So you always want to keep this on the boss. Most importantly, because if you don't, it's gonna run off and kill your group. But also because of the debuffs. As you can see here, you just stab it, and then it's got the little red fire over the head, and it means that it's taunted. Up there in the buff timers that are running down, reapply it. You can see the shield on the right side, that's your taunt. That means the enemy is taunted and he'll only attack you. And then left and right, that's the physical and spell resistance break that you give the boss. And then this is Heroic Slash. Add it to it, so you can always make sure that your buffs up there are not running out. Obviously, if you do both at the same time, Heroic Slash lasts a little less. That's why it's going down faster. So you just need to make sure that you reapply these, keep the boss taunted, and also keep your Dark Cloak and your Mirage up on your front bar, and you're good to go. Alright, as an ultimate, I've chosen Bolstering Darkness because it's really great. It conjures a Ring of Shadow, granting you and your allies major protection while inside the ring, and even after leaving it, reducing your damage taken by 30%. So this is another damage mitigation skill, and the reason why I prefer running this as an ultimate on the front bar is because it also counts for my group. So you put this Ring of Shadows on the ground, and all your allies who just walk through it, even after leaving it, will have their incoming damage reduced by 30%. So another great mitigation skill, and it helps you group out as well. Plus, allies in the area can activate another synergy, healing them 14k health, which should be enough to pretty much heal up any DPS to full health. Most of them have like between 15 and 18k health, so very, very big heal, and then another synergy that we offer for the group. So we got 2 synergies on the front bar, and all of our mitigation skills, and our taunts and debuffs for the boss, and our ultimate generation. Very cool. Alright, back bar. I'm playing a lightning stuff in the back bar. You can play double sword and board if you want to. Depends on if your group can offer some off balance and all, but I do prefer the lightning stuff nowadays, just because it's more fun, gives you a little bit more to do, and obviously you can also use the Crusher glyph on your stuff as well. So Blockade of Storms is pretty much just there to set an area of effect. Blockade of Storms on the ground, dealing shock damage every 1 second, and it can set the enemies concussed and off balance, which has them take increased damage. So this just looks like that. You just put in this wall or this field of lightning on the ground, and the enemy inside of it can be set concussed and off balance, so they'll take more damage. Next up, this is a bit of a flex slot. I prefer a Lotus Fan in here. What this does is it gives a bit of damage over time thing, and then more importantly, why I use it is the last bit here. All enemies are afflicted with minor vulnerability for 10 seconds, increasing their damage taken by 8%. So this is an important debuff, because they take 8% more damage from all sources, from your whole group. And also I use it as sort of a gap closer, because as you'll see here, it's kind of like a teleport strike thing. So if you need to be in one place really fast, you can use that as well for that. And then you see the minor vulnerability debuff. I like this on the back bar because of the minor vulnerability and the gap closing. However, if you've got minor vulnerability covered, if you've got a Warden with Fetcher Infection or anything else really that does minor vulnerability, shock damage does it too. If you have a Sorcerer with 2 lightning stuffs and all, you might not necessarily need this. So if minor vulnerability is covered, there's a couple other skills here you can use. Relentless Focus can be quite nice. Right, let me quickly check. Refreshing Path would be another heal that you could put on the back bar. This just puts sort of an AoE field on the ground, just like the Blockade, and heals for yeah, 772 health. You and all of your allies in the area for 1 second, but 700 isn't really a lot, especially if you're a tank and you've got 40, 45 or 47k health anyway. It gives you major expedition though, increasing your movement speed. So I like to use this, for example, in a trial. I can quickly show you. Like Cloud Rest, when Samaja is porting from one place to the other, because I don't really need chains in Cloud Rest. I don't really need the minor vulnerability if I'm in a good raid group. So if I'm tanking Samaja here, I can just use this and then run faster, get the 30% speed boost, and get over to wherever he spawns next faster. Another skill you could use in here would be Funnel Health. That's another magic damage over time thing that heals you. What else do we have? This is really my flex slot. I just choose whatever I need in that situation. Mist Form can actually be very nice from the Vampire skill line if they leave it like that for Harrowstorm. This just has you turn into mist, take a lot less damage, and you can escape situations easier. This can be very nice, for example, in Veteran Dragonstar Arena if you're tanking all the bosses and you need to get away for a second. Or obviously from the Fighters Guild Silver Leash. Since we're not a Dragon Knight and we don't have any chains, Silver Leash can pull enemies in. Obviously I can't pull my target dummy in because it's set to one place. But if you need to chain enemies in, Silver Leash would be another great option for this slot. And that should be about it, yeah. You could maybe use Shadow Silk as well for the poison damage. Or even Blood Altar. So whatever you need in this one, most of the time I run Silver Leash or Lotus Fan because of the minor vulnerability. Okay, next up is very important, Leeching Strikes. This comes from the Siphoning skill line. And what this does is your light and heavy attacks restore 1600 health. Heal you for 1600 health and restore 100 stamina for 20 seconds. And you restore an additional 4k stamina when the effect wears off. It lasts for 20 seconds. So you just always want to keep this on, basically. Always want to make sure it's on, let it run out. After 20 seconds, when it's run out, just reapply it. Because all the light attacks you do on the front bar will heal you and will give you stamina back, which is very nice as a tank because we need the stamina to block and for a bunch of our skills. Next up, we've got Mass Hysteria. Summon a Dark Spirit to terrify up to 6 enemies, causing them to cower for 5 seconds. This is pretty much our CC ability. You got a bunch of enemies, and they're running towards you. And you're using Mass Hysteria. This won't work on the dummies now. And everyone in that area, up to 6 enemies, will just be standing in place for 5 seconds. They won't be able to move, they'll hold their head and cower in fear. And that's how you can CC enemies to the ground, pretty much like the claws that the Dragon Knight has. And then put an elemental sword under them and go on with your usual tanking business. Alright, so the next thing we've got is our Far Taunt. This is very important as well. It's Inner Rage from the Undaunted skill line. Ignite the fire in an enemy's heart, dealing magic damage, but most importantly taunt them for 15 seconds. Our ranged ally target in the taunted thing can also activate a synergy, so another synergy that we give, but mostly we use this for far taunting since we don't have chains like a Dragon Knight unless we're playing Silver Leash. Just taunt enemies from far away, like you would with pierced armor if you're close. You can see the flames over their heads. They will now only attack you. And that's how you can lead them to certain positions. Or just get a quick taunt on them before you even get close to them. However, don't forget that the stabby taunt also reduces their physical and spell resistance, the pierce armor, so make sure to apply that anyway. Don't just use the far taunt. And then, last but not least, Aggressive Warhorn. This is from the PvP skill line, Assault. You'll need to play a bit of Battlegrounds or Cyrodiil for this, but it's very, very good. Always has been one of the best tank ultimates in the game. So yeah, pretty much what this does is you sound a war horn, it lasts for 30 seconds, and it increases your group's max magic and stamina by 10%. Plus, for the first 10 seconds, it would also grant all your allies major force, increasing their critical damage by 15%. So it's a big damage boost, it's also a bit of a resource boost, and you just want to have a good uptime on it. Healers usually run it as well, so if you have 2 tanks, 2 healers, you can just alternate and say my warhorn and then use your ultimate, and then someone else will do, and by the time it circles around to you, you should be full again, since we're Nord, and you keep heroic slash up to get the ultimate back. Yeah, so that's pretty much the bar setups. I've already gone into a couple additional skills. I'll quickly repeat that though, just for the timestamp in the video. So, on the front bar, I'd leave everything like this. Bone Surge though, you can swap this out for Absorb Missile. This will heal you when you get hit during your shield's active. And then on the back bar, the flex slot, Lotus Fan for the minor vulnerability. There's a lot of things you could put in here, depending on what you need at the moment. One of them would be Relentless Focus. Another one would be Refreshing Path, just because it gives you a speed boost if you need that in things like Cloud Rest, for example. And it also heals you and your group. Another thing would be Funnel Health. And then you have the Vampire skill Mist Form, which is good in things like Veteran Dragonstar Arena, if you because you can't be disabled or immobilized, and you can get out of shit situations really quickly and then come back in. Obviously Silver Leash, very important, because you need to pull targets in at times. And then all the Undaunted stuff, things like Blood Altar if you need to put that down, or Shadow Silk for the webs and the poison damage. Or even Purge if you have to do it, like in things like Halls of Fabrication. So these are all skills that I would have unlocked just in case you need them, and put them wherever Lotus Fan is, because minor vulnerability is nice. It's really good in a 4-man group, but if you're in a trials group, there should be enough people there to apply that buff anyway. Alright, I'd leave that there as well. For the ultimate, Spell Wall is pretty nice from the one hand and shield skill line if you don't need Bolstering Darkness. Or say if you need this more, this can be very good if you're just learning the tank things like Veteran Hel-Ra, because the warrior in the end has his weird attack combos and can surprise you quite a lot. And if you're running out of stamina, you just pull this, and then you automatically block at no cost and reflect all the projectiles cost at you. And while you block at no cost, you can obviously heavy attack and get some stamina back. And then there's Incap Strike for an ultimate on the front bar as well. Some people like to use this if they want to put a little bit more damage out. Enemies can be silenced with it as well, plus you get some magic and stamina restored when you deal heavy and light attacks with an enemy that has a negative effect on them. So it's another thing, but it's more like for endgame communities. If you want to go the safe route, I definitely use either Spell Wall or Bolstering Darkness on the front bar, and obviously the Warhorn on the back bar. Alright, so much for that. Now, I will quickly go into the passives. You can skip this part if you already know how to play a Nightblade and what all the passives do. I'll put the timestamps in the description, and then just skip to the gear part, which will be next after this. So, Master Assassin, we don't necessarily need this from the Assassination skill line. This is very nice though, for stamina and magicka return. When an enemy dies within 2 seconds of being damaged by one of your assassination abilities, you restore almost 2k magicka or stamina, whichever is higher, so stamina in our case. Then also, this increases our weapon and spell critical. This isn't too important, but we do some damage, so why not, right? And this increases your critical damage by 10%, plus dealing critical damage grants you and a group member minor savagery. and your whole group minor savagery, increasing the weapon critical ratings. So since we do crit now and then with the light attack or with one of our skills, this is a good thing to have because it can buff your group. Shadow, you want all of these. Increases your health, stamina, and magic recovery by 15%. Perfect for a tank. Shadow Barrier, casting a shadow ability, which we do. We always want to keep Dark Cloak up. That's where we get the 33k cap physical and spell resistance. Will grant you major resolve for 6 seconds, increasing your physical and spell resistance by 5k. The duration is increased by 25% for each piece of heavy armor equipped, and we've got that bonus at 175%, so it lasts for 16 seconds for us. Very cool. Then Dark Vigor increases max health by 3% for each ability slotted, so we've got a bunch of them slotted, which gives us 6% on the front bar. And Dark Veil increases the duration of your shadow abilities by 2 seconds. So all of these really great. You gotta get all of these to make the build work. And then Siphoning, after drinking a potion you gain 20 ultimate. The more ultimate the better, so we can use our Warhorn or Bolstering Darkness more often. Then Magic of Flood increases your max magic by 8% while the Siphoning ability is slotted. We do have Leeching Strikes on the back bar, so get that as well. Then also increases your healing done by 3% for each Siphoning ability slotted. And then also Casting 1 generates 2 ultimate, so every time you reapply Leeching Strikes, you get ultimate as well. One Hand and Shield, I'm not going to get into it, but you obviously want all of these. It's very important because it's your front bar, your main tanking tools, the sword and the shield. So you need all of them, and destruction stuff, also get all of these. Especially here in the Trifocus one, if you have a frost stuff equipped and you heavy attack with it, you gain taunt for 15 seconds. So if you needed to replace inner fire with anything else, you could switch to a frost stuff on the back bar and then far taunt by heavy attacking with the frost stuff. Light armor and medium armor, we don't have anything. We run 7 pieces heavy armor. I think it's better for a Nightblade tank. At least I prefer it, and it also plays in well with the passives. So you want all of these, definitely, because you're wearing a lot of heavy armor. Vampire, you want supernatural recovery, undeath, and unnatural resistance. This gives you more resistances while you're in the stage 4 vampire stage, which we're usually in. This one reduces your damage taken, and then this one increases your magic and stamina recovery, which is the main point why we're even a vampire, because the 10% extra magic and stamina recovery, very nice. Fighters Guild, you don't need any of that except for the first one, just to make the Silver Leash cost 15% less stamina, because it is quite expensive if you need to use it a lot, because there's a couple enemies that need to be pulled in. Undaunted, you want all of these. Activating an ally's synergy restores 4% of your max health, stamina, and magicka, which is very nice. And then this would be better if we played 1 piece of medium armor, 1 piece of light armor, but the 2% is still nice for 7 heavy, so we'll just grab these as well. You don't really need anything here. If you use Purge and you have too many skill points, you can put some in here because it increases your mag recovery for a support ability slotted. So if you use this, you get a bit of extra magicka recovery, very nice as well. Obviously you want all of your Nord or Imperial or whatever you are passives. That's very important. And then Alchemy is very nice, the medicinal use one, so your potions use 30% longer, effects last 30% longer, and you can have 100% uptime on them. Okay, so much for that. That was a lot of skill talk now. Well, let's put the food back on. It just ran out. Alright, so sets. Obviously, that's very situational. Depends on what you need. I'll give you my usual setup that I just run if I'm not requested anything else. And then we'll go into some optional gear as well. First up, we got Yolnaquins. This comes from Sunspire, and this is very, very cool for a Nightblade tank. It gives you max health. You get the minor Aegis, reducing your damage taken from Dungeon Trial and Arena monsters by 5%. You get an extra 1k stamina, which is really cool. And then this, when you taunt an enemy, you give yourself and 11 group members, so your whole raid group, minor courage for 15 seconds, increasing your weapon and spell damage by 129. This effect can occur once every 8 seconds. So, it lasts 15 seconds, so does your taunt. Pierce armor also lasts 15 seconds, so you can pretty much always have a good uptime on the Yolnacrin set, and you gain minor Aegis, max health, max stamina, plus you give all your raid group, 12 people, the minor courage, increasing the weapon and spell damage by 129. Very nice set. It's pretty easy to farm too. If you don't know any raid groups, just go to Craglorn and watch the zone chat. A lot of people will say hosting NSS, need a DD or a heal or whatever. And then you can just whisper them and say, I'm a DD, I'd like to come. And there's so many chests in this trial that it shouldn't take you too long to get that set going. So what I'm doing on this is wear infused pieces on the big ones, meaning the chest and the legs, and have tri-stat glyphs on them. That's my personal preference. Some people like to run things like reinforced, but since we're already hitting the cap of physical and spell resistance of 33k, there's no point in running even more reinforced pieces. So the big ones on the Nightblade Tank here, if you're a Nord and using my skill setup, you can have them all in infused. And if you're having them in infused, tri-stack glyphs are awesome because you get 500 of each, magicka, health and stamina. And then also on the legs here, and infused with a tri-stat, which gives you 1k more of each, and that's a really nice buff to it. All the little pieces I've gotten sturdy to reduce the cost of block with health and chance. So all the little ones in sturdy with health and chance, and the big ones in infused with tri-stats. The helmet, however, I've still gotten reinforced here with the health glyph. Back in the day, I transmuted this to reinforced, but honestly, you could probably also just go with infused on the helmet as well. I don't think you really need reinforced that much, since you have the passives that gives you 5k more physical and spell resistance, and it's really easy if you're a Nord and a Nightblade to get to the cap, and even if you're a bit below the cap at like 31k or 32k, it doesn't matter too much. So if you want to play it in reinforced to really get to the cap of 33k, do it. If you want to play it in infused, do that, but put a tri-stack glyph on. It just makes more sense, because 500 of everything is better than just 880 of the health. Which also brings us to the monster set. This is Stonekeepers. This is pretty much also a tri-stack glyph, gives you 500 of each. And then when you block, you gain an energy charge stack up to 1 per second, and when you gain 6 of these stacked charges, you release the energy, restoring 5k stamina and magicka and healing yourself for almost 6k. And then it has a bit of a cooldown after releasing the charges. You cannot regain new charges for 14 seconds, but that means that pretty much while you're just blocking attacks, not even doing anything else but blocking, you gain these stacks, and at a certain point, once you've gathered 6 charges, you restore 5k stamina, magicka, and heal for almost 6k health. So this is very nice for situations where you have to block a lot, where there's a lot of attacks incoming, just to keep your stamina and magicka up and not run out of resources. One of the best tanking sets in the game, if you ask me. Shoulders are also in sturdy with max health, and then the head in reinforced or infused with either a tri-stack glyph or a health glyph. And then the other set we're going for is Leeching still. Leeching plate set gives you 2 health bonuses, 4% healing taken bonus, plus when you take damage you have a 20% chance to summon a cloud of leeching poison under the Assylian, and it deals poison damage every 1 second for 5 seconds and heals you for 100% of the damage cost. A cloud can be created every 5 seconds. It lasts for 5 seconds, so it has 100% uptime, and you always have this 20% chance pretty much to get that poison cloud underneath you, which heals you. It's very hard to die if you have this set on. It's very, very good for self-sustain. I've seen people try to wipe and they couldn't because they had this on and it kept healing them, so they had to take it off before they could even die, really. So you have a sword and a shield on the front bar and the lightning stuff on the back bar, obviously. The sword I like to have in defending with a hardening enchantment to gain a damage shield for 5 seconds. The shield I've gotten reinforced here to hit the cap, and then with a health glyph on it. And the lightning stuff needs to be infused with a crusher enchantment. That's very important because as a tank you can put this elemental blockade down and reduce the target's physical and spell resistance by 2k for 5 seconds. So that's another really great debuff for the boss, and you're in charge of putting it on there pretty much. If you want to play double sword and board, I would actually put crusher enchantments on both of them, like on the main sword and on the back sword, just to make sure that it's always there. Then we've got the jewelry. All of them are in healthy and all of them have magicka recovery glyphs because we need a lot of magicka. Most of our skills cost magicka. And the extra health is very nice as well. So this is fairly easy to farm. You can farm the weapons on normal, and then if you have a group that can do Imperial City Prison on vet, I'd get the jewelry in purple so you don't have to upgrade it. Otherwise, if the jewelry is blue, it doesn't make too much of a difference. You get a tiny bit less health, but you can still put a purple or a gold glyph on it and get the full 169 magicka recovery. So this is what I run usually. Now let's get into other sets that you can use. On the body, I don't really do much. I either have Yolnakrins on or I have Eben on. Also in infused then with tri-stats, just like I would have it on Yolnakrins. Eben gives you a bunch of max health, 4% healing taken as well, and it increases your max health by almost 1k for you and 11 other group members. So if you need to give your group that health buff, everybody gets about 1k more health. Then run Eben. This is pretty much the safer one. This gives your group more health and gives yourself more health, and is really good for survival. And then you got Yolnakrins, which gives everybody the damage buff and gives you a bit more stamina, so this is a bit more of the offensive set. So if you can use a bit of a damage boost and your group members are okay and they're not dying, go for Yolnakrins. If you want to play it safe and they're doing enough damage anyway, go for Eben and help them keep themselves alive. Now tank sets, there's shitloads. There really is. Livewire, I don't really run that too much, to be honest, but it's very nice because when you take damage you have a 25% to overload your circuits and apply concussion to enemies within 8 meters of you, so you can pretty much constantly have that off balance thing going. Then obviously the meta is Alkosh. This only gives you weapon critical and weapon damage bonuses though, so people only run it for the... It'll take your health down a little bit, but people run it mostly for the 5-piece bonus, which is when you activate a synergy, you send out a shockwave that deals physical damage over 10 seconds, but more importantly reduces the physical and spell resistance of the enemy's hit by 3k or more if you purple it or gold it for 10 seconds. So this is pretty much the meta tank set for the extra physical and spell resistance reduction on the boss. You can run that as well, obviously. I just prefer leeching because when I'm pugging things I don't know what I'm getting into, and this is pretty much my joker to keep me alive. But if you're in a good group and you know what you're doing, you can run Alkosh if you want to. Then obviously there's the Akaviri Dragon Guard set that gives you magicka recovery, healing taken, and reduces the cost of your ultimate by 15%, adding to all the ultimate gain that you've seen in the skills and in our Nord passives and in our Nightblade passives already. So this is I mostly put this on when I'm off tanking, because as a main tank you do the taunting. So as a main tank you'll usually be running Yolnakrins and either Alkosh or leeching or Morak Tong, for example. So this I usually run this when I'm off tanking to get more ultimate and just pump out as many war horns as possible for everybody. Another great set would be Morag Tongs. This is also a Stam DD set, but when you deal direct damage, you cause the enemy to take 10% more damage from all poison damage abilities. So you usually see this more often on Dragon Knights because they do have more of the poison abilities. But it's also a very nice tank set to have in your inventory. We've got Eternal Yukida, which is also another trial set. When you drop below 25% health in combat, you heal yourself for 13k health and gain 94 ultimate, but this effect can only occur every 1 minute. You don't really see that set much anymore, but it's still viable. It also gives you minor Aegis. It's still a nice tank set, definitely. Like, I wouldn't put it on the top of the list, but it's still a nice one to have. So if that's what you get your hands on, go for it, why not? You've got Garlandwy as well from Cloud Rest. After successfully blocking, you have a 50% chance to empower 3 allies within 15 meters, increasing the damage of their next light attack by 40%. I used to like Garlandwy before Yolnahkrin came out, just because of the minor Aegis. I used to run that on the buddy. A lot of people did, I think. Nowadays it's not too great anymore. You got Powerful Assault. When you cast an assault ability, you and up to 3 allies within 15 meters gain 175 weapon and spell damage. So an assault ability that will mainly be Vigor. I think that Vigor is in the assault skill line. Let me quickly check that. Yeah, you won't run rapid maneuver or anything in a trial, so you'd either have to put on Caltrops or Vigor. Vigor is a self-heal. You can probably put this on the back bar, where on the triangle button where I've got Lotus Fan. I wouldn't replace Dark Cloak with it, to be honest. But if you want to run Powerful Assault in this, you just have to put Vigor up every so often to give everybody that weapon and spell damage buff. It's also a nice idea. Thorax Pact decreases the weapon enchantment cooldown. This is very nice. Also, if you don't have to run anything else, a lot of people do that because of the Crusher glyph on the lightning stuff, or on your 2 swords if you're running swords on board, double sword on board. It pretty much just it gives you more armor value, it gives you 1k max health, and it increases the enchantment cooldown, which means you can use the weapon ability more often, say the elemental blockade or just light and heavy attacks and all, and get your glyph to proc sooner. Then for the completely safe side, this is really good for beginners, Plague Doctors, just because you can buy it or farm it in Deshaan, or just buy it from the guild traders. And all this does, it gives you more healing taken and massive amounts of health. So if you're just starting out tanking, this is actually a very nice set to get. It'll keep you on the safe side, it'll keep you not dying while you're learning how to tank. Not too bad. And then last but not least is Warrior Poet. This gives you a lot more armor value and max health, and also minor toughness at all times, increasing your max health by a further 10%. So this is also a very nice set, giving you more resistances and more health. But mostly, I don't know, I haven't really figured out. We're already at a cap of 33k, we've got 47k health the way we're set up, so we don't really need even more health or more armor value. Yeah, so mostly for this build I'd stick to leeching if you don't have to wear Alkosh. If people want you to wear Alkosh, then do that. Make sure you take all the synergies to keep the physical and spell resistance reduction up. If you don't need to run Alkosh and you don't need leeching either because you have no trouble surviving, go for Akaviri Dragon Guard just to pump out as many Warhorns as possible, or for Thorax Pact to get your glyph brocking more often. These are pretty much the 4 that I would advise you, if you run this build, to have at hand. And then for the body, as I said, If you got Eben and Yolnakrin, you'll be fine. You don't really need all of these. That's just for endgame content and special situations. And monster sets. Stonekeepers is great, unless you don't really need the block and you don't really need the resource gain. Then there's a couple of other good tank sets out there. I would not run Lord Warden on this build because we don't need even more physical and spell resistance. We're already good on this. The only time I would run Lord Warden is, say, for example, if you're in Veteran Sanctum Ophidia and you're doing like the Lamia boss where you stack up really tightly next to each other, because it also puts a circle on the ground, a blue circle that gives all of your allies an extra almost 4k physical and spell resistance within 8 meters. So this is very nice if you're stacked tightly together and your group needs a bit more resistances because they're likely to die. So you would only wear this for your group, but not for yourself. Bloodspawn is very nice as well. This just gives you a lot more ultimate regeneration. So if you want to pump out even more Warhorns than you can already do with all the passives that Nightblades and Nords have and everything, this is a nice off-tank set with Akaviri, paired with Akaviri usually. Earthgore, just for the massive 33 or 34k heal that it can offer. It can only occur every 35 seconds, and usually you think of it as a healer set, but you do heal yourself quite a lot, and it can sometimes save your ass in certain situations, especially if you're far away from the group or the healers can't really reach you too well. It's always good to have with you. Malabeth the Scourgerer. This puts a beam on the enemy that steals health from it, and you also gain major vitality. It's alright. I haven't really found many situations where I needed this, but it's I guess it's nice to have in the inventory anyway. Chudan, this just gives a whole lot of armor and physical and spell resistance. We don't really need that as a Nightblade tank, so you haven't used this in ages really. Sentinel of Rikugams is usually a healer set, but it does summon this little Dwemer spider that gives you health back and restores magicka and stamina to you every 1 second for 8 seconds. So if you're having trouble sustaining your magicka and stamina, which you shouldn't have the way we're built, but it might happen, so that's why I carry this around with me. It has been nice in some situations, but I don't really use it very often. Stonekeepers, the best choice for Nightblade tanks, hands down. Swarm Mother, this is interesting. When you taunt an enemy, or when you block an attack from enemy, you spin a spider silk thing and pull them into you, so it's pretty much like a chain, like the Dragonite chains or the Necromancer bone armor chains. So what you can do with this is, in things like Veteran Dragonstar Arena, in the Ice Arena, when there's enemies that won't come close but you can't really reach them, you can fart taunt them and block, and then when next time they hit you, they'll get pulled in by that spider silk thing. So I used to run this actually in Dragonstar Arena. It was very nice, so it's a good set to have with you. Very nice one. Engine Guardian, you restore health, max, and stamina with this one, so this is also very nice for resource management, probably even more so than Sentinel of Rikugams. Though this, I think, leaves a ground heal, or gives also you and your allies magic and stamina back. So this is more group based, but Engine Guardian would be for you then as a tank. Torvacoons. When you take damage from a nearby enemy, you summon a growing pool of desecrated bile for 8 seconds, and then enemies in the bile take disease damage and are afflicted with minor maim and minor defile, reducing their damage done and healing received, or health recovery. There are certain situations where this is actually very nice. It also gives you a health bonus on the first 1-part bonus, so definitely a nice set to have with you. There's quite a couple situations where this comes in quite handy. And then Vycosa, when you bash an enemy you've taunted, you frighten them with a deafening howl, applying major maim to them for 3 seconds, lowering their damage done by 30%. This is a really good set, but it's pretty advanced because the major maim can only occur every 15 seconds, and it only lasts for 3 seconds, and you need to bash the enemy. So it needs to be taunted. So all of these 4 things have to happen at the same time, sort of. And you really need to time it very well. You need to know when exactly you need that 30% damage reduction for the 3 seconds, and then taunt and bash exactly at the right time, so that the big attack that's incoming from the boss is within the 3 seconds window, sort of. But yeah, just stick with Stonekeepers, really, to be honest. And if you can't complete Veteran Frost Vault, just get Bloodspawn, that'll work very well. Or get the Engine Guardian, which shouldn't be too hard to get. That will also work very well, just for the time being. So these would be my monster setup recommendations. Okay, so that was a whole lot of explaining of skills and passives and sets. We'll quickly get into the champion points, which are important, and then I'll leave you to it, because I think I've talked enough already for today. 66 Ironclad, 12 Spell Shield, 51 Thick Skin, 49 and 49 Hardy and Elemental Defender, 32 in Quick Recovery, and 11 into Heavy Armor Focus. I've played around with this quite a lot, and this is a setup that worked really nicely for me. Obviously this is subject to change, especially if you're doing veteran trials. You want to check out the trials guides on the internet and put your CPs in accordingly. 37 into Warlord to reduce the cost of break free, which we'll need to do. 8 into Sprinter for 5% sprint cost reduction, because you do need to run around a lot as a tank. And then 16 into Bashing Focus to reduce the cost of bash by 10%. This worked very well for me as well. Obviously, if you figure that you're missing something, just make sure you put it wherever you need it. Alright, here I've got 64 into Arcanist for the Magicka recovery, and then 43 for a 10% boost on the heavy attacks, on the magic and stamina that my heavy attacks restore. And I've also put 27 into Mooncalf, because I know you're not regenerating stamina while you're blocking, but oftentimes, even the times in between running from one enemy to the next, while you're sprinting, you're losing stamina, and if you're just trying to get there. So just generally, even in the downtimes when you don't have to tank an enemy, this has come in quite handy. It just made my 20k stamina fill up a little bit faster, and I prefer having these 27 points in here instead of having like 75 or having more into tenacity. 66 into Shadow Ward for 22% block cost reduction, 9 into Tumbling, 4% roll dodge reduction is enough to give you the Treasure Hunter passive. So you get better loot from chests. We got 75 into Blessed for healing done, also the healing done on ourselves. 72 into Elfborn for the critical healing with magic abilities, also the healing that we do on ourselves, obviously. And then over here, the reason why we've got 123 points in there is because of the Last Stand passive. If you fall below 20% health, you gain Major Heroism, granting you 3 ultimate every 1.5 seconds for 8 seconds, and it can occur every 20 seconds. So a lot of ultimate back if you're falling below 20% health. This is a very nice passive, plus there's not really anywhere else to put all these points, so I'll just spread them out here. This increases the damage done with damage over time effects. There's 26 here, 23 into the critical healing with stamina abilities. This can be very nice. If you're running Vigor, I'd put even more points in here, because Vigor can also crit, and it's a stamina healing ability with powerful assault, and you want more there than if you choose to run that set. Mighty increases physical poison disease damage. Just put 64 in there, and then piercing a couple in there. It doesn't really matter too much where you put them in here, because you're the tank, you're not dishing out shitloads of damage, but I just spread them evenly to get to the Last Stand passive. And as I said, the only thing you can do, if you run Vigor as a stamina heal ability, just put a whole lot more points in there. Alright, so much for the champion points. I hope this was quite good. I do have a couple of Nightblade tanking videos where I'm already using this build on my channel. I think even Veteran Frostwald's in there, and I'll link that in the description below as well. Other than that, I really hope you enjoy this build. Nightblade tanking is so much fun, and it is a great class to tank on. And the way I set this build up, it is very, very easy for beginners to get into the Nightblade tanking and for pros alike. And if you're already really good at tanking, then you know what to do anyway with the skills and the sets, and you can run Alkosh and all that stuff, right? But it still works very nicely. Okay, so thanks for watching this. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.